So we're going to jump into some questions. First off, Rob, can you just share with me a brief history of your career, things you've done, things you've learned, some of the pathways you've taken, so that we can all get a better feel for who you are?
Well, Chip, thanks. And before I start here, I want to introduce my wife, who has been on this journey with me. My wife, Sandy, right here. Sandy, stand and wave to the crowd. Very important that you have a very supportive spouse when you undertake a lot of these positions, and certainly leadership positions that are high profile. But I'm a Butte, Montana native. It's just up the road a little bit. My mom and dad still live in Butte, Montana, so this move put me a lot closer to them. Started my career really, I was an athlete in high school, had the opportunity to go to college and be a basketball player. It was my way to get to college. I'm the first person in my family to get an education. And so I parlayed that into not only a bachelor's degree, but a master's degree, the MBA, and of course my PhD. So I feel really good about being able to do that. And I want to be thankful to my mom and dad, because even though they didn't have that background, they knew the importance of an education. So after college, I went and worked. My first job was in working for IGA, Independent Grocers, a place called Ryan's Incorporated. So I was an accountant there, became the division accountant, decided I wanted to go back to school and get a master's degree. I did that, went to the University of Montana, got my MBA. Went from there to the state of Montana and worked in their legislative auditor's office, and that was a position that's really, that experience there has really carried forward through all the jobs I had, because what I did there was a performance operational auditor, and a performance operational auditor is where you go in and you look at the efficiency and effectiveness of organizations. And so that's why I've always felt that that background has really served me well. So parlayed that into a career at the University of Idaho, where I was an internal auditor, and I think you went through the whole myriad of positions I had at the University of Idaho. But one of the things I always challenged myself is make sure that if you're going to progress, it's not always climbing the corporate ladder. It's sometimes taking that ladder, because lateral moves can position you differently in organizations and give you great experience about how different areas operate. So I always prided myself in taking that lateral move and not necessarily trying to climb, but certainly had a great opportunity, great experiences at the University of Idaho, and then of course looking very forward to this job here. Happy to be here, happy to be a member of this community.
All right. How many of you guys are familiar and follow what's been going on and the purpose of the Auditorium District and what it's going to do for our community? Wow. Does that surprise you?
Well, I didn't see a lot of hands.
No.
But I think it's one of those things where the Auditorium District was formed in 2011, and it's based on a 5% tax it's a transient revenue tax that's generated from all the people that stay in hotels here. So it's not a property tax. It's been interesting to get that question. I think there's a misperception that people think that their property taxes are paying for this event center, but the community back in 2011 formed a district based on the understanding that at some point in time we would construct an arena. And the arena has been planned for a long time, I understand that. And to be fair, it's probably been too long. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity to see this thing through. I think the board has done a wonderful job of putting the pieces together to make sure this thing happens. And I know people want it overnight, it just doesn't happen that way. For example, the board has done a wonderful job in getting the architect and the contractor on board, and they're going to use a CMGC approach, and I think that's a good approach for this process because it gives a lot of quality control. They've did a feasibility study. Very important. The latest one was in 2018, and that study wasn't the most optimistic study about operating in an arena, but it was fair. And based on that study, it was obvious that we had to embark on a financing plan, so they hired a firm to do the financing plan. I think it's a very solid plan. It is a very conservative plan. It's based on utilizing the $10 to $12 million that the Auditorium District currently has in their pocketbook. They've been collecting this tax since 2011, of course expending some of it over time. The other piece is we're going to have ongoing revenues from the transient tax. So the plan is to sell certificates of participation. Now that's a unique financial instrument that is, I really wasn't familiar with, but it's based on having ownership in the long-term revenues of a facility, and that's what the Auditorium District will be. So the Auditorium District is prepared to sell $40 million in certificates of participation, and then of course we need to raise $10 million. So we're looking at a $62 to $64 million project, and we are to the point right now, the only thing that's holding us from moving forward is getting those private dollars raised. And I'm hopeful here in the near future, you're going to see a nice announcement that is going to help us. It's going to be a springboard towards getting this thing built. So again, the board's done a wonderful job putting all these pieces together, hired a fundraising firm. We currently have a memorandum of understanding with Centennial Management Group to operate the facility, because we really need somebody that's very experienced at operating the facility. Centennial Management, they operate the Maverick Center in Salt Lake, and they also own the Chuckers here. And go Chuckers, they've had a heck of a start this year. So that's a little bit about where we're at.
9-0, and they got a doubleheader tonight because of a rain out yesterday, so maybe we'll make it 11-0.
Yeah, well, they're 9-1.
9-1. Yeah, my bad. All right, so we'll probably come back to the auditorium District because it's such a fascinating thing, and the potential for what it'll bring and do for Eastern Idaho is so huge. But now that you've been in Eastern Idaho for almost 2 months, there's a really important question on a lot of people's minds. As we brought somebody in from the University of Idaho in Moscow, is it the Vandals or the Bengals now?
Man, you're asking to ask some tough questions today, Jim.
I told you this was going to be
Well, when you have a degree from an institution, you spend 30 years of your life for an institution, obviously there's that Vandal piece. And the most important thing is, during that 30-year period, I met some of the most wonderful people in the world that are just become great friends. So there's always going to be that piece of it. But in this role, listen, I want all the schools to do well. I want the high schools to do well. I want Idaho State to do well. And I think it's great for the region. And that's what we're all about. You're all about promoting this region, right? We talked about that the other day, about how we all need to get together and promote the entire region. So, yeah, I want to see everybody do well.
And we have a little piece of the Vandals here in Idaho Falls. And we got a campus. I think there's about 300 students here from
We do, and I want to tell you, my lovely wife is employed on that campus for the University of Idaho. So
wonderful, cool. You've had a pretty diverse career. You've done a lot of interesting things. And when, in our professional lives, we always take risks and rewards, and there's always challenges that are out there. Share with us one of the most rewarding challenges you've taken on, and how you worked through it, and what it did for you in your professional life, overcoming that challenge.
Well, you've mentioned a lot of the things that I've done, and I feel real strongly that I've been able to make a difference in a lot of those areas, whether it was when I first worked for the university and worked in the Grants and Contracts office, and we had such a significant unbilled charge issue of $3 million, and what that means for people is, if you're not billing for those charges, then that means that you have a cash flow problem. And so I was able to come in and take care of that. I was able to move into the College of Agriculture and upgrade their facilities. They couldn't figure a way out how to do that. We were able to do that, restructure those facilities across the state. Certainly the basketball arena on that campus is something I worked for 15 years to try to get together, and it's going to happen. So those are some of the things. But when I look back throughout my career, the number one thing that I'm very proud of, that I always will be proud of, is I was able to establish a great organizational culture in every position that I've been in every organization or every unit. And I think that's really critical. I'm really big on organizational culture, because I know, when you work in a toxic organizational culture, you're miserable, right? It's awful. And people don't like their job, they don't like each other, they start hating Santa Claus. You talk about, it's just a miserable experience. So I focus a lot of my energies on organizational culture, focused a lot of my energies on really studying companies that have great organizational cultures. And some of the work I've done with private companies, I've developed a pyramid of organizational culture. And that pyramid is really based on the two cornerstones. As one is relationships. And I think relationships in your organization are so important, both for your customer, the people outside, but the people inside. You need to get to know those people. You need to get to learn from them and make them feel valued and make them feel part of your organization. Gone are the days where people are going to come to work and they're going to be motivated just because you're paying them and they have benefits and they have a job and you're the boss. That no longer, they want a relationship with the leader. And I think it's really up to the leader to form those relationships and make sure those people feel special and feel important. And then on the other side, on the other cornerstone of that pyramid is climate. And climate is usually what you see when you walk into an organization, right? Climate is something, as a leader, you get to choose every day. So if you ever wanted to be a weatherman, you can be it every day. You choose as a leader to come in the organization and have it be 75 and sunny every day. You choose that. That is something that you have a choice to do and bring that to your organization. And with that, those are a couple things that you influence, right? So the bottom of this pyramid is where you're influenced. And the other thing you influence would be having great effort, great attitude. And that is something every day. Who controls our effort and attitude? Well, we do, right? You do. We should never empower somebody else to be in charge of our effort and attitude. And then I think the other key piece to that is, as a leader and building a strong culture, is really listening. And what I say is I want people, over-communicate your listening. Over-communicate. You know, don't sit there with your phone out. Somebody comes in, and so you come in and say, Chip, how you doing? And you're looking at your phone and looking up at them. The message you're sending is, you know, Chip, your message is not important. Put it away, over-communicate your listening, give them your eyes, head nods, paraphrase, ask them questions back, and be a great listener. And I think when you do that, create that foundation, great things happen. You create an environment where people will have a sense of belonging. And that is really key. People, you know, evaluate you in 7 seconds. They determine, they make a first impression of you. And people want to feel belonged in an organization. They want to know. They're always asking the question, am I valued here? Am I safe here? And so that belonging piece really, really important. On the other side of that is having optimism and a vision. As a leader, you have to have optimism and vision as you build that culture. And I think that's huge because two things in this day and age that drive great leadership. One is, you know, people think that you got to be really smart and really intelligent. Well, that helps. But the two things that are so important right now are grit and optimism. If you have grit and optimism, it's amazing how much you can accomplish, and that's what you need to sell every day. And leading through expectations. You know, I always say you got to lead through expectations. Create great expectations for your employees. People respond to the expectations you place upon them, not so much rules. You know, that's a really key point there. And then truth, trust. Have trust in that, creating that trusting environment. And the best way that you can create trust in an organization is when you make a mistake, own it. I failed. And then rewarding people in the organization, showing them great respect and reward, recognize. I know when I talk about respect people, you should respect all levels in the organization, right? I can remember when we would have janitors, and I would know every janitor by name because that was important to me, because they had a very important job, and I wanted them to know they were valued. And I would we might have a top-notch recruit coming with parents, and we would get that recruit. That recruit would commit to come to the University of Idaho, and the next Monday I'd go see our janitors, and I'd say, Scott and Mary, thank you for helping us get this recruit. And they would look at me like, what did I do? Well, you kept the building clean. You made an impression on mom and dad. And so having that respect, reward, recognition, and then developing employees and growing them, and getting to the top of this pyramid. And I know I'm rambling a little bit, but I want to really provide people the understanding of how important culture is in an organization. And one of the failures I had as a young leader was I would dedicate and devote so much time and energy in developing people and getting them trained, and then they'd leave the organization. And you know as well as I do, when somebody leaves your organization, it is really, really hard. It's hard on them. It's expensive to train, it's hard to recruit. And what I found was, it would make me a little bit, I guess, bitter. And I go, how could you leave when I provide you all these resources in this training? But what I learned over time is you need to embrace that. When somebody is able to go get a better job and provide for their family, that's a great thing. And the more that you support that, the more people are going to want to come and work for your organization, and that's how you build this family culture. So, long answer to your question, Chip, but to me, I'm very proud of being able to build strong organizational cultures.
Okay, beautiful, thank you. Good advice for everybody. What would you say is your greatest professional accomplishment? And what did you learn from that success?
Well, I touched on it a little bit. I mean, I look at my greatest accomplishment of life is being a great husband and a great father. And look for my wife for acknowledgement there. Like you said, well, good thing you're trainable, you're coachable, so you became a good husband. But that's really important to me, is to be that person. And so greatest accomplishment, again, I think I touched on it earlier, is just being able to provide that strong organizational culture and build a family culture wherever I've been, and make people feel like they're valued and they want to come to work, and they know how important they are to an organization. So I think, I've never looked back at accomplishments as being strictly individual. You need great people. It's no secret. You need great people in the organization. You need to surround yourself with great people. And John Maxwell had an unbelievable quote. He said, one is too small of a number to achieve greatness, and that's true. So you need everybody to get on board and everybody to row in the same direction. And that's, again, what I'm most proud of, is being able to get people to row in the same direction and create that strong culture. And so
It's powerful. I tell a lot of people that the primary reason that I work is for my family. And it's interesting how sometimes work can become family. And it should become, you should be able to build that type of relationship.
well, you spend so much time in your work environment. So you need to make it fun, you need to make it rewarding, you need to make people feel valued and special.
Let's go the opposite direction. What's the biggest mistake you've made, and how did you learn from that?
Well, how much time do you have here? There have been so many, and I think you always look, success is not a great teacher, but failure is. And I think as I look back, it kind of ties into a lot of things, a lot of different philosophies, but when I look back at one of the biggest failures was, let me set the stage for you a little bit. So this is probably 10 years ago, we were recruiting for a new director of marketing. And the director of marketing left and went to pursue on other activities and did a good job, but we weren't, in my opinion, creative enough. We didn't have a lot of great initiative, and I was focused on finding somebody that was going to bring great initiative, energy, and creativity. So I hired this young man who was an alum, who was very bright. He had tremendous initiative. He was creative. He put together a brand framework like the first 2 months on the job. That's something we never had. It was incredible. So very, very confident in his abilities, but probably a little bit inexperienced. So what happened was, you as a leader sometimes, I always talk about getting the right people on the right seat on the bus. And I love initiative, I love passion, but I learned early on you have to control that initiative and control that passion a little bit. And you look in leadership theories, and there's this old situational leadership theory that I really embrace. I think it's really important, and because it talks about the maturity level of an employee. So maturity level of an employee, we're talking about their confidence and their experience. So if you had 4 quadrants in the first lower right quadrant, and you had an employee who was not experienced and didn't have any confidence, you're going to use a telling style leadership, right? You're going to tell them what to do, where to go, how to do it. And then as they develop, they're going to move up to the second quadrant, which is more of a selling style. Now that is a quadrant that is a little bit dangerous, because the person in that quadrant, from a maturity standpoint, very confident, but not enough experience. You get over to the other quadrant, the third quadrant is where you get them into more of a participating style, where they have great experience, but they may be lacking a little confidence. And then you get to the last quadrant, and it's where they're in a total delegation style, where they have confidence, they have that experience, and so you're able to just delegate things and move. So as a leader, at times, what you see is you will get people in the wrong box, or you won't know how to act in them. You may want to, if you're a leader who wants to delegate all the time, yet you have somebody that is not experienced and doesn't have a lot of confidence, and you start delegating, what's happening? You're setting up that person for failure and yourself for failure. So back to the story. I have a young man who is in that second quadrant, right? Very confident, tremendous initiative, give me more, I can do this, but was a little inexperienced. So his goal was is to have a new logo. And we're all, we like new logos, and at that, one of the new logos he was presenting was, and you see this, it was becoming common, it's become more common now, where a lot of institutions just have one letter for their logo, right? Boise State, they have just the B now, and Idaho, it was confusing to just have the I because you have Illinois, you have Iowa, but he decided that we're going to have this new logo, and it's going to be the V for Vandal. I said, okay, it might be nice to have another logo, and let's roll with it. So here I am one morning, I come into work, and walking up to my office, and I grab the student newspaper, the Argonaut, and here it is on the front page. Change is coming, and here's geese flying in the V formation. And I go, well, this is quite interesting. And then I looked down below and said, come at 4 p.m. for the great announcement. I'm going, uh-oh. We kind of overpromised and underdelivered on this one. I can see this happening right now. So I get to my office, and I no longer get to my chair, and I have the commissioner of the Western Athletic Conference calling me saying, you want to tell me something? Do you want to let me know what you're up to? Or are you leaving? Are you changing conferences? What is happening? We hear this big change announcement is coming. And I go, no, that's not happening. We're unveiling a new logo. And then I'm getting calls from donors. So does this mean we're going to do basketball arena? We're going to renovate the football stadium? And so it was a typical overpromise and underdeliver. And we went with it. We rolled it out. It was the epic failure because we never met the expectations that people had. But what do you learn from that, right? As a leader, you learn that, okay, he was in that M2 category. He needed more leadership. He needed more experience. And it was a humbling experience for him. And believe me, I took all kinds of heat over that deal, but I took responsibility for it because I put him in that position. And I think as a leader, as a manager of people, you have to be really, really aware of that maturity, professional maturity level of that employee, and don't set them up for failure. So that was one that comes to mind that kind of touches on a lot of things that I think are involved in leadership, but it would have been easy to go and totally throw him under the bus. And the last thing I wanted to do is destroy that initiative. And didn't do that. And that young man has gone on to do great things, and now is an associate athletic director at the institution. So it's been very impressive to see his career growth, but that's, again, a long answer, an example to your question there of a failure.
Okay. Who's your role model in life for work? But who do you look up to as your exemplar?
Well, I don't know if I could narrow it down to one. I think I look back over my lifetime, and there some people that you're going to really get to know. My first one, I would say, is a gentleman named Jim Patrick. And Jim was a single guy who worked for the railroad in Butte, Montana, and he dedicated his life to helping youth in athletics. And he was the one that got me involved in basketball. I can remember him picking us up in his homemade camper in the back of a 1954 Chevy pickup, and he'd pick us up every night, take us to practice, and he was hard on us. We learned a lot. We became better athletes, and his dedication, I guess, and giving of himself really impressed me, because as a leader, you have to give yourself, right? You have to be a servant. And I really embrace the concept of servant leadership. I look at Steve Jobs, and you talked about an unbelievable visionary and innovation, because you have to, as a leader, have vision, and it was incredible. And this one may surprise you a little bit. We had a lot of opportunity to travel to the South when we were in the Sun Belt Conference way back in the day. And we were in Montgomery, Alabama, and I went on a tour of the city, and one of the tour sites was Rosa Parks Memorial. And you know the story. That young lady stood up and said, "I'm not giving my seat up for a white passenger." So when you're there and you're at that bus stop, it's kind of a surreal experience. What that taught me is the tremendous amount of courage that young lady had to display that day. And that's always struck me, because as a leader, you have to have courage. And then, I look back at my mother. I didn't grow up in the best environment, but my mother always showed the ability to persevere. So I look at those four people setting the foundation for really what I think leadership's all about. Sacrifice, like Jim Packard, giving up yourself and having great vision and innovation and showing courage and taking a bullet when maybe you shouldn't, but that's part of leadership. And then the last one, again, of course, is having that perseverance to get through these tough times, because at the end of the day, there's always a tomorrow, right? Yesterday ended last night, so you should always focus on your future. So I would say those four people, I guess, would have formed what I think leadership is all about.
That's an extremely diverse group of people too. It shows that anybody can have an impact on anybody else's life or positive ways, depending on how you do it. I remember I had the same baseball coach from the time I was 8 years old till I was 15. And at the time I thought he was the oldest guy in the world. But now that I'm getting old, I realize he really wasn't that old. But the impact you can have on a kid's life by sticking with them and helping them out is powerful. So it's cool to see the diversity in your heroes. So let's stick with this trend. Not that you can go, well, you might be able to still go to your mother. But when you need advice, who do you turn to?
Well, that's a great question, because I think one of the cornerstones of building a great organizational culture, if you remember, it was building relationships. And I'm so big on relationships, and over my career I've built so many great relationships with different people that I have a network that no matter what the problem is, I can reach out to somebody and have that conversation. So I can't narrow it down to one person, but obviously I trust my wife dearly. She's provided me a lot of advice over the years, but professionally I think it just varies on what the need is, and I think that's the neat thing about being able to have all those relationships that I have.
Let's steer back to, I don't know what we're doing on time. It goes so fast when we're up here. And now my phone doesn't want to turn on. Let's turn back a little bit and talk Auditorium District a little bit more. Explain to me exactly what the auditorium is, for those of us who aren't aware of it, and maybe share some of what it's going to do what it's going to bring to our community. What are the benefits that are going to come?
Well, again, we talked about this earlier. The district was formed in 2011, and it was based on being able to find resources to build an event center. And again, those resources are based on a 5% transient revenue tax that's been collected. The district aligns with the city limits. So my understanding is early on they tried to have the district be part of the entire county, Bonneville County, and it was voted down. And so then they narrowed the focus and made it part of this, it aligns directly with the city limits. So when the city annexes some property into the city, then the district automatically expands. That doesn't mean the district gets more money, because all of our revenue is based on the transient revenue tax. We have to have people stay in hotels. And this is the gateway to the park. And the tourist season is heating up here, and so there's a lot of room availability, but there's a lot of hotels in the district. So what this arena is intended to do, and this is why the hoteliers got behind this, is they said, you know what, we'll support the tax if we can have more events to get people here to stay in our hotels. So the whole purpose of the event center is to create more events to get people to come and stay, and hopefully with that, there is obviously an economic impact to the community and the city. I mean, that was done in the feasibility study. If I look back, I think in 10 years, I said it's going to be about 121 million of economic impact. There's going to, in 30 years, about $261 million of economic impact. Over 30 years, it's going to bring $92 million of wages and salaries into this community. So the obvious economic impact is there. The thing that we don't talk enough about are some of the intangible things. That it could help market this area even more. I think it's huge for employee recruitment and retention. I'm big on that. I'm big on, I mentioned earlier, is when you lose employees, you have to retrain them. So retaining employees and attracting employees here, if they know there's some events that are coming that they can do, I think that helps your recruitment. I think it's an opportunity for the community to expand out in other areas and develop other properties around this event center. So those are all positive things that need to happen, and will happen when we get this thing done. And I say when, because I am confident that we are going to see this thing through. I think we have the right plan in place. We need to do a better job of communicating what that plan is, and I think you'll see more of that here in the very, very near future. So excited about what it's going to bring. The base tenant is going to be a hockey team. I was surprised how huge hockey is in this area. I mean, it is really, really huge. I mean, and there's one sheet of ice in the whole area that is, you have teams practicing at midnight, as early as 5 in the morning, and to some extent, that's really unfair to young kids and even older adults who are involved in hockey. So hockey is going to be the primary tenant, but there will certainly be some great concerts that we're going to be able to bring, great events, floor shows, home shows, maybe some large conferences that can come here. But really, really excited about that opportunity. And what drives me in this deal is I have this vision of when I'm sitting in this arena and we have Disney on Ice, and I get to look in the eyes of this young girl sitting there who's fascinated that this event is in her hometown, and she gets to go home and sleep in her own bed. That's going to be awesome. And the same thing with the hockey kid who has been traveling all over this region playing hockey because they can't play here, and to be able to go play a game and be done at a reasonable hour and go sleep in your bed. Those are things that I think are being tremendous benefits to the community in an intangible way. That's really what is kind of driving me to make this thing happen.
It's awesome. I have never heard anybody bring it to the personal level. How many of us have went to a show to go see Disney on Ice in Salt Lake, and you either spend the night there or you get home at 2 in the morning. It is kind of nice to think of those little girls that get to go see their Disney princesses and then go home and sleep in their own bed. So I appreciate you bringing that down to the personal level with us. Let's see. What do I want to ask you next? I got a whole bunch of questions, but you've covered a lot of them. Tell us exactly what your role is with the Auditorium District. Obviously, you're not going to be pounding nails and building this thing, but
maybe if I have to.
Well, let me know. I'll bring my hammer. But yeah, tell me what your purpose and why it's so important that we have you here now to bring this thing to fruition.
Well, it's a unique opportunity. To be able to have a position, to be able to do something that's never been done before, that's pretty cool. And this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. That being said, the position is really interesting because if you look at the job description, you look at it and you go, who would want this job? Because it's so diverse. On one hand, they want somebody that can put together a lot of internal policies and procedures and document control plans and change control processes and a strategic plan. But then they want somebody that can be the face of the community and get out and fundraise. Most often, those are two different people, right? Two different skill sets. And fortunately in my career, because I've been able and have had the opportunity to do so many things, that I think I fit all of those. So I'm comfortable in doing that internal stuff and getting a direction for the board and leading the board in the direction, but also getting out and selling this project that the community has been so patiently waiting for. So it's a lot, and it's diverse, but challenging. One of the things I've always done, I think I mentioned up front, I've always taken on hard jobs. I'm not saying this is a hard job. It's an interesting job. But when you take on hard jobs and you accomplish something, it just means so much more. It just does. And so I've been able, throughout my career, to take on some jobs that people might frown upon and been able to accomplish some things in them. And again, it's so rewarding. And everybody in this room, you understand when you've taken on something really hard and you've dedicated yourself to it, and when you accomplish it, you feel really good about it. And so that's a little bit about the job and why I'm excited to have the job and see move this thing forward. And again, it's going to take a collective effort. It's going to take a community effort. We owe this community a shot in the arm, and I think we're going to give you that shot in the arm here soon.
Good. We're excited. It's one of my favorite questions to ask people. If you could start over, yeah, now you know where it's going to go. Knowing what you know now, if you could start over, would you do it differently, and what would you do differently?
Well, there's certainly some things as you look back you'd like to change and have things be different. I guess the world today presents so many opportunities out there. And there have been opportunities that I've had presented to me in the past that I haven't taken advantage of. And so as I look back over my career, I wish that I would have taken advantage of some of those opportunities. I'm loyal to a fault at some point, which is on one hand a good trait. But if I had to look back, maybe be a little bit more adventuresome and take advantage of some of the opportunities that are out there in this world, and, go create your success. And so that's, I guess, if I look back, that's what I would tell you today. But I live life with no regrets, right? My wife doesn't like this quote because I use it all the time. I said the windshield's bigger than the rear view mirror. I think it's really important to focus on going forward. I mean, you can get somewhere going in the rear view mirror, but it's going to take you a long time if you keep regressing backwards. So I think it's really important to have a forward focus in life, and that's my philosophy. So
success isn't always comfortable because you often have to take risks. Is there a risk that stands out in your life that you took that paid huge benefits to you?
Well, I think I've taken risks with a lot of the positions I've taken. I always challenge young people when I have the opportunity to be in front of young people. So, to grow in life as a person and as a professional, you need to step outside your comfort zone. You could stay in your comfort zone the whole time and you can have a great career, but to really grow, you need to step outside of it. So I think I've done that a lot. I mean, I've taken jobs that I probably had not enough experience, and I was probably that M2, confident but not a lot of experience, but I did it anyway. And so I think I've taken a lot of risks that way. I would answer that.
It's funny, I don't want to go too personal, but yesterday was my anniversary, and as my wife and I were having our dinner, I asked her, I said, if you had to do it all over again, would you do it all over again? She goes, not with anybody else. And I said, but what would you change? And she says, we've had a lot of hardships, we've done a lot of hard things, and we've had trials come our way that a lot of people have never seen. She goes, but the journey was so amazing. She said, I wouldn't change a thing. And it struck me as powerful because we have had a lot of hard things, and it sounds like you've done a lot of difficult things in your career, but it's that journey and that progression through time that builds up and makes us who we are.
Well, it's a great point, and I've always said, people are so focused on outcomes. We live in a now society. We want everything now, and we can't have things we have things at our fingertips with technology. But the process, the process is so important. If you have the right process in place, focus on that, focus on doing the right things, then the outcomes will happen. But if you strictly focus on that outcome, I think you're going to struggle at times. So it's really important to have the right process in place. And that's why I'm so optimistic with the Idaho Falls Auditorium District. I think we are getting the right processes in place, and it is time that we get this thing off the ground and move forward for sure.
Beautiful. So you're new to Idaho Falls. Impressions? Are you falling in love with us yet?
Well, the wind has been a shock. I should be used to it because I spent a lot of time in Great Falls, Montana. And if you spend time in Great Falls, you learn to walk into the wind. But Idaho Falls has been impressive to my wife and I. We are, I guess, always surprised by the things that are out there, whether it's stores or things to do. We had an opportunity 2 weekends to go to Jackson. We'd never been to Jackson. So when you go, that was a phenomenal trip and that's an hour and a half away. It's incredible. I mean, so just the areas of the outdoor activities that you can have here and experience, and the people have been great. You know, I just think they've been great, very welcoming, and so that's why we are looking at, you know, putting roots down here, and we're in the middle of building a home, and so we want to stay here. We don't want to be, you know, one of my other pet peeves in life is I've seen too many leaders come into organizations and they assume I guess they take a renter mentality, right? So I look at leadership is, are you an owner or a renter? So if you're an owner, and you own your home and it needs painting, you're going to paint it. If the gutter's falling down, you're going to fix it. You're going to mow your lawn. You're going to make sure it looks good. If you're a renter, maybe not so much. And so it always bothered me when people would come into an organization or a community and they'd rent the community and the organization for their own self-interest to move on. It became very obvious to me that that would happen, and it was very annoying because I've always assumed that I want to be an owner. And so my wife and I, we want to be owners, and we are going to be owners here. And so this will be the third home we've built together, and we're still married. I think that's a good thing. So you want to throw some adversity in your life, build a home together.
Just make sure it's got a garage and we're okay.
Well, that's kind of my deal. Chip is I want a 3-stall garage and an open concept in the living room, dining room, and the rest have at it.
Well, I'll tell you this, I came to Idaho Falls, I can't remember, 1993. It's a welcoming community. It's what we call home. There's no place we want to be. I screwed up and took a job out of state a few years back, and we weren't gone 3 months, and we were thinking, we got to find a way to get back to Idaho Falls. It's a great place. So we're glad to have you here. This time I want to open it up and see if we have any questions from the audience regarding his past experiences, regarding the Auditorium District, what's going on there. Any questions you guys have? Justine, by the way, Justine will tell you how pleased you are that you want to keep the hotels full.
I work in Fairfield. I do have a question about whether or not you have a time frame of when the event centers are actually going to be built. Because now we have a paved road over there, so.
Yeah.
Do we know, are we getting any closer?
Well, my answer to that is, and I explained earlier the whole funding concept. And really, for us to be able to, we have 10 to 12 million in the bank. We're going to be able to generate 40 million in certificates of participation. But before we can sell those, we have to raise 10 million. So if somebody wanted to write a check today for 10 million, we would have the certificates of participation being sold tomorrow, and I would be out there with a shovel on Monday. So it's all contingent upon the $10 million in fundraising.
So you're still waiting for naming rights?
We are. We have great momentum in that area, and we're looking forward to getting that win and getting a few more to follow it, because you know it as well as I do. You know, this thing has lasted way too long, and there's a lot of doubt. And I always say when you're fundraising, and I've had the opportunity to do a lot of that in my career, it doesn't matter who you're fundraising with. I think you need to accomplish 3 things when you're meeting with people and asking for funding. Is one, they're always going to look at you and say, well, what's in it for me? You know, they may be really philanthropic, but it's really, what's in it for me? Is it going to meet my philanthropic needs, and what am I going to gain from this? And what do I have to give up to make this happen? Do I have to shift some of my resources? And then probably the most important thing, if I give it up, will it happen? And so that's where we're at right now, right? Is will it happen? And so I'm very confident. Be honest, I would not have accepted this job if I didn't think there was a possibility of getting this done. And I think there's a real good possibility of getting it done. And I don't know if you heard some of the background about it. You know, I mean, the board sometimes takes some criticism because it's taken so long. But they've really put together a great plan. And the board chair, Terry Gaznick, is very, very committed. And you talk about somebody that's an owner of this project, it's Terry. And so with her leadership and hopefully my involvement, we can move this thing across the finish line and up those room nights, right? That's what it's all about. We got to get more room nights.
You talked about vision, as a leader, having that vision. Earlier on in my experience level, gaining that leadership, how can somebody in my position cultivate and develop that vision?
You know, that's a great question, and one that I wish I would have touched on this earlier. You know, we talk about vision and mission statements and core values, and I think core values, by the way, are really, really important for an organization. But the one thing that I always think is organizational purpose and personal purpose is the most important thing. And by purpose is, what's your why? What is your why? What is the thing that really makes you tick and you want to tick? And what is the why of your organization? Why does that organization exist? And so when you figure out that why, that really helps set a direction for you and your organization. A lot of organizations are getting away from vision and mission statements and going strictly to a purpose statement, why they exist. And a purpose statement is a very interesting statement, because the way I would give you a description of what a purpose is if before GPS, when the people out on the ships used to navigate, how did they navigate? They used the stars, right? So they would never touch the star, but in a sense, an organizational purpose is your star. You're not going to touch it. You're not going to accomplish it. For sure, it is something that's just going to be there all the time and keep driving you. And then when you're on that ship, they always have the shipmates and people making sure you stayed on course, making sure the thing was operational, making sure, if there was some hazards in the water, they seen them, or high winds, they would adjust. And an organization, they don't have that, but they do have core values. And those core values keep you on that course to that purpose. So core values are really, really important. They have to be the right core values for your organization. I'll give you a great example, and this may date me, but it's always an example I use when I taught in the classroom, and that's one thing we didn't talk about. I spent 25 years in the classroom, which was very fun for me. But core values, Enron. Anybody hear of Enron? Company that went belly up. One of their core values was maximize profit. That's not a great core value, right? Because what does that do? So maximize profit, you're going to maximize profit any which way you can, whether it's legal or illegal, and we all know the outcome there. So the long answer to your question here, but I think it's really important to establish what your why is and what you're passionate about, what you want to do, and then fit yourself into an organization with that. And then it's really about something that's going to provide you and your organization optimism, right? So up front I talked about grit and optimism. You got to have grit and optimism, man, whatever you're doing. And I would say, early in your career, be optimistic, find that vision, find that purpose, and have that grit, because those two things are going to carry you forward.
Ron, thank you for your time and all the insight on leadership and team building. Really appreciate that. I was taking notes. I hope you didn't think I was surfing the web.
It'd be just like when I was in the classroom teaching.
But I must get back to the event center.
Yes.
How big is this going to be? Seat capacity, whatever. How does it differ from the Shoshone one they just built over there?
Well, the Shoshone one is a lot smaller, and it's not. I haven't been there, but I think it doesn't really accommodate a lot of court sports, ice hockey or basketball. You could play there. That's another thing I didn't mention, but you could have basketball tournaments in this facility. It's going to be 4,000 fixed seats. It's 142,000 square feet. That's the inside of that facility. There's going to be 27,000 square feet of inside arena space for the rink, basketball. There's another 11,000 square feet for meeting and banquet space. So this is going to be an all-inclusive event center, one that's going to allow large events. Now there will be floor seating, so we can add another 1,500 seats on the floor, so we can accommodate anywhere from 5,500 to maybe 6,000 if we squeeze you in. It's going to have 12 suites, so you'll be able to purchase, people purchase a suite, be able to have great access and amenities to watch an event. So this is going to be not in competition with these other venues, because it's going to be able to provide larger events to this community.
Any other questions? This is an easy crowd, Rob.
Well, go ahead.
Do you see your past relationships against the NCAA be able to help bring collegiate activities to the city?
You know, I do, because I know that operation very well, and I know exactly what they're looking for and some of the criteria. And I think that we really need to think outside the box and how we can get some of those. Now, are we going to get a first or second round NCAA basketball tournament here? No, because we don't have that size. But there's some other sporting events that the NCAA sponsors that we could have great access to be able to bring some of those events here. Yeah.
Is soccer one of them?
So indoor soccer is, we're talking about indoor soccer, being able to have that. I think that is, soccer is huge. I mean, I was mentioning how huge hockey is here, but soccer is overtaking the country right now, and it's a wonderful sport, and the World Cup is going on right now, so there's all kinds of enthusiasm for soccer. So yes, we want to have it available for soccer as well.
Yeah, you know, years ago, we used to have Dodge National Rodeo down indoor at Holt Arena. Is that something that this arena can handle, is a rodeo type thing?
You know, we want to look at that. We want to be partners in this community, so we don't want to overtake what's happening at Sandy Downs, because I understand there's a rodeo there, so we want to be very careful. I think as I look forward to developing a strategic plan, I want it built around 4 components. I want the Idaho Falls Auditorium District to rise to meet the expectations of this community, and the R means that we're going to be very good stewards of resources and we're going to generate resources. The I is we're going to involve and engage everybody we can, and the S, want to create great synergy with the city, with Parks and Recs, with Sandy Downs, with the county. I think, again, you know, I use that same thing, is one, it's too small of a number to achieve greatness. We need everybody. We need to all be rowing the same way. And then that E part of the rise is to provide entertainment for all generations. And that's what I think this event center will do. Is every event going to be for everybody? No. But at some point in time in the year, are there going to be several events that are going to meet your needs and your desires? Absolutely. Absolutely. So that would be my answer to that. I want to create synergy first. The last thing we're going to do is be a competing entity.
Any other questions? I love your word synergy, because what this project is going to bring to our community is going to allow our community to continue to grow. We will be able to provide more services. It'll make it easier to attract more jobs, more businesses, and to just continue to grow this economy that we have here. So I've seen the reports, and you know, $120 million of economic activity, or was it 10 or 20-year mark?
That was a 10-year mark.
10-year mark, yeah. That's huge.
It is.
It's going to be a big blessing to our community. So,
and hopefully most of that goes back to our hoteliers, you know, right? I mean, they're the people that we really need to give a hand to. They've been so patient and they contribute to this, and we owe them. And that's one of the things that I want to do, is make sure we deliver.
their product is what's going to deliver this
Yep.
huge benefit to us. So yeah, we're very, very, very
That's
appreciative.
another piece of synergy, right? If we bring the right events, it's going to help them. They treat those people right, they're going to come back. So if we're all working together, great things can happen.
That's the exciting thing, is what it can offer us all winter long. You know, Justine will tell you right now, is your hotel booked tonight yet? Are you full yet? Yeah. You know, summertime, we have a couple of million people a year going to Yellowstone National Park. So we don't have a problem filling our hotels. We've been running 80 to 85% since middle of April occupancy. And I tell you, there's hotels all around the world that would love to have 2 weeks of that occupancy rate. We can get it all summer long, but this project is going to provide opportunities to bring people to our town to enjoy our great hospitality all year long, and that's what's exciting.
We're hopeful. I mean, right now they're filled. Okay, so, but we want them to be filled in December and January, right?
Yep.
Bring me those winter and fall things all day.
Exactly.
Go hockey. So, yeah. Well, if there's no more questions, I want to thank you guys all for being here. I want to encourage you to support the Chamber in its next huge event and undertaking, which is the parade. I want everybody to know we've been getting a lot of phone calls. Parade is going to be exactly where it has been for the last, I don't know how long. We do have a roundabout we're going to deal with, and we're going to see how it works. Don't go anywhere else. Go where you went the last 10 years to see the parade, and we promise you it's going to be a great parade. We've got a great lineup of entrants this year. And we all know the 4th of July is probably the busiest day in the entire year for the city of Idaho Falls. Starts off with the parade. It's going to wind up right down here with fireworks that night. So we hope to see you all at the parade. If you see us out there, wave at us. And have a great 4th of July this year. And thank you for supporting us. And once again, I apologize that Tommy Alquist couldn't be here. We're hoping to book him for our September date. And he did send sincere apologies because since his campaign, he really fell in love with Eastern Idaho and was excited to come back here and to get back to the community. So watch for that. We'll bring him back again. Rob, thank you so much. It's exciting having you here. I get to sit in some meetings with Rob, and he's always a wealth of information, and he's fast becoming a friend. So we're glad to have you in the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you.